Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you most kindly for joining us. Tonight on the program, we take a look at the growing concerns of Nigeria's social intervention programs as a new World Bank report shows that less than half of targeted households are currently being covered despite government's claims of reaching 8.5 million families. We also turn to developments around security, as in the northwestern part of Nigeria, residents are grappling with the resurgence of attacks in states like Katsina, where residents of Malumfashi have recently taken to the streets to express their displeasure over the resurgence of bandits attacks following the reported collapse of some of those notorious peace deals between the local authorities and some of the armed groups in those areas. We'll be navigating some of these developments alongside some of the issues in the polity with our public affairs commentator, Engineer Nurudeen Hamman-yero. But first, let's bring you up to speed with the latest developments in the polity.
Panic has gripped the Federal Civil Service following the abduction of 6 directors of the Federal Ministry of Defense by gunmen along the Kabalokoja Highway. The incident, which occurred on November 10, 2025, involved senior officers traveling from Lagos to Abuja for a directorate-level promotion examination. Sources said the gunmen staged a well-coordinated ambush. The federal government says ongoing diplomatic talks with the United States are yielding results and easing tensions between both countries. This came as U.S. Congressman Bill Huizenga expressed disappointment in Nigeria's handling of attacks on Christians and called for economic sanctions instead of military action. At least 2 people have died in protests across Danjonku, Dantashi, and Dayi communities in Malumfashi, Katsina State. The protest followed a bandit attack that left 1 person dead and 17 others abducted on Monday. Residents said it was the 3rd attack in a week, with more than 30 people kidnapped. Defense Minister Mohammed Badaru has assured that his ministry and the military high command will protect soldiers carrying out lawful duties. He gave the assurance during a press briefing on the 2026 Armed Forces Remembrance Day in Abuja, following Tuesday's altercation between FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and Navy Lieutenant A.M. Yarima over a disputed land linked to former Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Gambo. Panic has gripped the Federal Civil Service.
Right, that's a wrap of some of the day's biggest stories. We're going to segue into some of those stories in just a moment, but a quick reminder that we're going to talk about a variety of issues shaping governance and politics of the day. Talk of the current state of affairs for millions of Nigerian households amid these biting economic realities, where the latest report by the World Bank indicates that even the targeted 8.5 million households are not currently receiving those benefits that the Nigerian government has said they would. And of course, signposting the growing concerns around hunger and poverty. But we're also going to touch base with some of those security concerns emerging from the northwest, as well as some of the events of the past 48 to 72 hours in the northeast. Those attacks on rival groups between ISWAP and Boko Haram insurgents in parts of Borno or the Lake Chad region, where we understand that at least 200 plus insurgents have been killed in those counterattacks between the two rival groups. Well, let's bring in our analyst for the evening. Honorable Nurudeen Hamman-yero is here to help us navigate some of those issues. Oh, well, thank you so much for taking the time. It's good to see you again.
Same here, Talma.
Right. Well, let's start this way. There's been a lot of hue and cry about Nigeria's management of the U.S. pressure over the last couple of days or a week or so. What's your 2 cents on where we are right now? There is a sense that the tension might be subsiding a little bit, but there is no logical conclusion about how the diplomacy would look like. I mean, the stock market has taken a hit. We've lost some 2 trillion naira this week also, against the backdrop of what had happened last week. The economic fallouts are quite telling. But overall, what do you make of the management of the situation and where we are right now with the rhetoric?
First of all, it's unfortunate that we are always reactive as a nation. And if after 65 years of independence, we still want to wait for a nation like United States, for whatever reason, to threaten Nigeria, supposedly the biggest economy in Africa, the highest population, even though we have our diverse nature, but we always wait for such kind of attacks before we begin to act. Yeah, I think the threat, to an extent, has really, rejigged our security structure, because you can see the effort from the security apparatus we have in the country, the successes they are now recording. Could it be that...
Do you think there's been a change?
Could it be that it's because the Trump administration threatened to come in and, and settle this thing, and the Nigerian government wants to prove that we are on top of the situation? If yes, it will be okay to say the intervention of the American government is somehow helping on one hand, which is security, even though they are yet to come on the ground. However, economically that you have spoken, it's not only whenever there's an issue like this, even American government, the economy has been shaken because of the shutdown. Now, it's the same thing with Nigeria. Whenever so many things have happened, there is a serious decline in the economic activities in America because of the shutdown, because they are unable to come up with their own data, labor data. Hence, there is nothing like the CPI for individuals. Now, it's the same thing with Nigeria. When you have things like this, there is no confidence for the investor. Hence, he has to take away his investment until there is a secured environment. Hence, then he will come back and then have some sense of investment and see what he can get out of it. But in a situation where the country is dancing between the American threat, internally, mind you, we already have an issue on ground that up till now, the federal government is not giving heads up to Nigerians, which is on the coup aspect that was, that was reported, and we were pretty aware of some officers that were arrested on the matter, and then there's silence for some period of time now, which it ought not to be.
You think the coup ties into all of the volatility that we're seeing?
No, I'm not really saying it's tied to that, but there's the flow of information in a country like Nigeria should be one of the reasons, that the citizens will understand how the government is being run. It will put some level of confidence that okay, we've been talking about this thing, because if you don't communicate to me, how do I know what you are doing? Because you promised to serve me, and part of the service is you should tell me what you are doing. Now, if I have a business I'm supposed to bring into Nigeria, there was a case of coup, people were arrested, there is a case of threat from a foreign nation claiming to come and settle genocidal, accusations on the country. That has not been addressed. There is a complaint even from the foreign affairs saying these things are happening because there is their appointment of ambassadors have been delayed. So many things are, just hanging. So the government needs to communicate adequately to Nigerians, and that has not been for a while now. So I think there is a missing link between the government and the governed. So they really need to do much and begin to talk to people so that at least we have this sense of understanding that these are the policy directions. Because today, if you ask a typical Nigerian, what exactly are we facing? The only thing he knows is what he sees on the social media, which is not adequate. It can be from any other person.
Why have the responses from the federal government, whether it's the Minister of Information, Foreign Affairs, presidential aides, and even the president last week during the swearing-in ceremony, as well as the council meeting of the Federal Executive Council, he responded in some manner to these threats and tensions, alluding to how diplomatic options are being explored. Why is that not enough in your view?
When I say it's not enough, is because first of all, an average Nigerian to date would tell you most people are even confused. Why is America saying that there is a genocide happening in Nigeria. Because I saw a little video of an American who stays in Lagos. He's a Jewish person. He said he has been, he was adopted by the Odasanya family. In fact, he called himself a Jewish Yoruba, a Yoruba Jewish person. And he said, to the best of his knowledge, and he is somebody who protects the interest of Christians all over the world. He tours around the world and see how the Christians' rights are being protected. He said, and I quote, in a family that he was adopted into, he has seen the kind of, tolerance, because the family is made up of Christians and Muslims. In fact, some of them doesn't even have religion, but yet they stay together peacefully. And this is how he has also enjoyed his relationship with the family. So he is telling the interviewer that he will say it unequivocally that there is no case of genocide in Nigeria, but he can attest to communal crisis in Nigeria. That he knows. Sometimes between people in the same tribe just because of land dispute. Sometimes, all these minor things. But to wrap it up and call it a genocide of a particular people because of their faith, but especially the Christians, in a country where the president has his wife, his son, they are all Christians. So how do you even start wrapping it around you that they are being killed? Because it's like you are telling him he is killing the people in his house if he can't protect other Christians.
Isn't this more than just about the Tinubu administration? Because if you adopt that argument, that line of argument, then you hear what Khan is saying, you hear what the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria is saying, and all the other commentators who have pointed to specific targeted killings, whether it's by Boko Haram, whether it's by ISWAP or Lakura groups, who are very specific about who they are targeting. Yes, there might be Muslim casualties, but when the facts are looked at, yes, there are people who have been targeted. I mean, attacks on churches, attacks on mosques. These are attacks on people based on their faith, and that makes sense. But beyond just the varying opinions, do you get the feeling that the temperature is slowly coming down, or do you think the Americans still would apply some pressure when it comes to the results that they're seeing from Nigeria?
It has to slow down, because I saw even at the American Parliament, it has been subjected to the floor, and they are now debating it seriously as to which measure is appropriate for action. And I guess out of the three that were outlined initially, the best option would be the best option would be either to partner with the Nigerian Armed Forces or security structure in general to see how they can help them, perhaps with equipments, training, and then technological know-how to see how they can fight it together. That would have been the best option, because first of all, it sounds diplomatic, it sounds, it gives sense of respect and citizenship for even the Nigerians themselves, because yes, they know that the American government is not looking down on the country. So I think it's slowing down because other options are being considered, and eventually we may see the best on the table, which I know the Nigerian government will take, and this matter will be brought to rest. But at the moment, I feel we are reacting, and we have to stop reacting to issues. A country of this nature, with the resources we have and manpower, we should always be prepared. Ordinarily, we are supposed to be a guide to other African nations, particularly growing African nations, be it economically or otherwise. But where we are now like the punching bag and everybody is looking at us, so it's a pity. So I think we have a lot to do to really get our footings together and be once again the giant as we claim.
Earlier on in the conversation, you alluded to a renewed push by the armed forces to get the result, get the job done.
Yeah.
Because those were their marching orders against the backdrop of the recent changes to the military hierarchy of at least 3 service chiefs, right? I know you have friends within the armed forces. What is your reading of the morale, of whether there is a change in the energy towards the fight against these terrorists?
Yeah, first of all, the morale generally is not just because of the change. Whenever there is a change of command, naturally it comes with a renewed energy, because there's a new person, there's going to be a new idea, there's going to be a new policy. Yes, there has to be some continuation with some other policies, but he will also come with his own new thing and see how he will, corroborate. Now, if you are talking about the morale, and on the average, and a military man sense of morale is let the welfare be taken care of. Let him be given adequate support in terms of his military, equipment, so that he will go and do his duty and do it very well. So on the average, I wouldn't say we are doing well, really, because the Nigeria that we know right from independence, vis-a-vis the resources that we have not done so much in terms of, standardizing our military equipment. Because if you look at countries that today will stand side by side Nigeria, even in Africa, like Egypt, if you go, you will see how good their military is. Yes, we have a high sense of discipline. We have our equipments, and the country, the government after government have been voting for resources to see how, we really come up to speed and measure up with other key players be it in the continent or globally. But you always hear these cases of corruption which is not peculiar to the military, has eaten up the entire country. So we are not kept aside, and until it is addressed, there will always be that discouragement from the officers, the personnel's sense of view, because they will be looking at is, how do I do the job? Because when money is voted for this, you don't do what you're expected to do, but you want me to give my life to it. So you will always be, so there is the morale, but honestly speaking, I wouldn't say is enough, to really face the challenges that is bedeviling us.
Internally speaking, there have been several military frontiers, or at least theaters of operation. Speaking to developments in the northwest, which ties to some of the attacks that we're seeing in the north central. Talk to me about the developments in Sokoto, in Katsina, and also most recently what we're hearing from parts of Kebbi, for instance. The peace deals that have generated a lot of public debate over the last few months appear to be falling apart in parts of those local governments who have negotiated with these bandits for some sort of truce. Where do you stand on what this means for communities in those situations, but more importantly, the government's inaction over the last 3 months when these peace deals were being signed almost on a weekly basis? Close to about 11 or 12 local councils in Katsina State has signed those peace deals with bandits.
First of all, if we were doing very well, like I mentioned earlier, we wouldn't have been signing deals with bandits. That means I'm always on the school of thought of Malam Nasir El-Rufai, who said, I don't subscribe to any form of negotiation with a bandit. Let's force them to also, plead for mercy. It means if we speak to them and they don't agree, let's use the power that we have to force them. Meaning if the ones that refuse to surrender, you can just clear them in the bush. There has to be some collateral damages which should be managed, and it should become minimal to an extent. But be that as it may, what is happening in the Northwest is appalling. Remember, some times ago, we also were looking at what has helped, the people of the Southwest, which is the Amotekun, that they have, taken as a regional security, and today is even recognized globally. And it doesn't stop if Katsina State government will be doing this thing as a state without the support of their neighboring states, to really sit down and look at, first of all, what is even the matter? Is it just negotiating with these people? Because if you negotiate with me today and I give you money for a week, as soon as you exhaust this money, you will come back for another one. Because there is no any effort, meaningful effort, that will make sure, this thing is settled once and for all. So signing peace deal, even from the beginning, was a very big mistake. Because today, why these insecurity issues lingered, even if you look at that global stage in Afghanistan, in all this Iraq and Libya, the Arab axis, is because it became a business. Look at how much money America has spent in Afghanistan, almost $2.3 trillion. At the end, with some scores of dead, and they left and they finally left it to Afghanistan. So if our governors will continue to negotiate with criminals now because they want peace for local governments, and they, as soon as it is election time, they also negotiate with the criminals just to have a peaceful election, and after the election they will continue to negotiate. How much of this taxpayer money will you continue to give to the bandit? And do you even know his sponsors? Instead of channel these resources in addressing the root of the matter, because you can as well spend these resources collectively. Vote these resources, put it at the center, because you certainly by now have information, be it from the DSS or from the military hierarchy, that this is how these guys are operating.
There are some who believe that government's inaction or underperformance is akin to complicity. That is the only way to explain why this issue continues to multiply and scale up, impacting hundreds, if not millions of people across the northern part of the country especially.
But again, the last time we were also looking at the success the federal government has also made in trying to address this matter. But because they were lacking, the support the federal government needs from the subnationals is not negotiating with the bandit. Okay, if the federal government will be supporting the security to go and dislodge these criminals from their hideout, and then local governments or states are negotiating with them because they are their children, tell me, these are conflicting policies, which certainly one will jeopardize the other. And in this case, it is the federal government effort that will be jeopardized, because if you are sending your military people who are already complaining that we are not taken care of properly, and then only for him to come to a state and realize the bandit has negotiated with the people, to the extent that I have seen on the video, I don't know how true it is, that a chairman of a certain local government is going for a naming ceremony of one of the bandit kingpins. So tell me, if this relationship is existing, who is jeopardizing who, and why should people still be crying on this banditry issue? If the society have finally accepted that these bandit people are part of us and we are willing to be taking the shot, then people should keep quiet and face it that way. But it's not healthy, because we have children who are growing, they are supposed to go to school, and schools are shut down. We have markets that you're supposed to go and exercise your daily is shut down. Now, livelihood generally is not going well for you, and you are still willing, be it at the local government level, to negotiate with these people, give them money simply because they are your children. Remember, we said the Yoruba people addressed it, even after knowing that it could be any other person, but let's find out, are they our children or they are foreigners? And they were able to come together, set up this system, and today they are addressing it. They have addressed over 600 arrested people, addressed a lot of community clashes. Now, even the Northwest, I am really calling on the federal government to partner with the Northwestern states to come up with this Northwest security structure, by whatever name they want to call it. Daud Alawan has his own idea. Dick Korata has his own idea. Other governors, Ubasani, who is from the beginning, if you are going to has his own idea. Let them partner together, come up with the structure, and see, okay, how far can we come and support the federal government to address this matter?
Do you think there's been too much talk to a point where people feel there's a lot of lip service, especially in the north, with northwestern governors, for instance? They talk a big game about state police, about collaborations, summits here, summit there. They even went to the United States last year to take part in a summit about insecurity here in Nigeria, with so many question marks about...
And little action.
Why? Do you believe that the political will is there?
It's not. It's just a lip service, just like you said it. And I agree with you 100%, because if these governors are serious, reference, I will still go back, it's simple. The time frame between the security summit that the Southwest had and the establishment of the Amatekun was less than a year. November 20, was it 17 or 18 or 19? 2020, Amatekun was up. So now, tell me, these are serious-minded people. And they know, look at today, every form of business idea is from Ondo State to Lagos State to Ogun State. You can see the kind of investor has his own confidence. Now, if you want to come and invest, tell me, even if you are a northerner from Katsina State or from Kaduna State, what confidence would you have to go and invest in the state? Because you are not even seeing, this kind of deliberate effort from the governments to say, look, I will protect you and give you a conducive environment. Come and put your money because I want my people to benefit. It's not there. The other one is doing his best, but look at the sabotage he's receiving internally, even from the state. People, deliberate sponsorship just to undermine. So we have this multidimensional issue, which has also resulted to the insecurity. And then there is also the political aspect of it. You are not in government, and you want to do anything possible to undermine the existing government because that will be your window to campaign and unseat the incumbent. So tell me if this is your understanding of politics, and this is the value you have for the same people you want to come and govern. Why would you face bordering issues like this and address them squarely? You will never do it.
How concerned are you about the developments we've seen over the last week in Kano? Because for some reason, Kano has been insulated for quite some time from the past Boko Haram attacks, which was years ago. But now we're seeing attacks, isolated attacks in parts of Kano. Last week, multiple attacks in Shanunu, for instance, killing so many, a handful of people, the kidnappings of some others. And yes, the 3rd Brigade said they have been able to neutralize some bandits, but it's spreading to states that were somewhat insulated. And we all know the economic importance of Kano in the grand scheme of things. How concerned are you about the migration of these bandit groups into states that seemingly were insulated before now?
Because I am so much worried, because even the bandits have their own economic analysis. By the time we have, really damaged this area and there is nothing more to hold on to, of course he will move. Because this is also his own economy. He can't be staying in the same place where there is nothing. And that is why the whole thing sometimes even degenerates. When there are people to kidnap on the way, you pick them. When there is nobody, you begin to target people who are earning their daily living. You begin to attack farmers and ask them to pay some ransom. You begin to attack herders and seize their, steal their cattle. So it degenerates every day. So if you ask me, why is Kano experiencing this resurgence of the attacks you are talking about? I will tell you, because there is nothing much again to take from the neighboring states. And the man must move and look for elsewhere. He will, still continue to line up his pocket with people's, resources. And Kano will be his next destination until he is neutralized, just like the 3 Brigade are saying. So until these guys come together and demonstrate their willingness beyond just talk, but walk the talk, and see that if it will be the only thing they would do in their 4 years, even though the 4 years has been exhausted in a way, if that would have been the only one thing they would do, believe you me, in their second term, massive economic activities would have come up, because first of all, security is the best for everything. If there is nothing, if the security is not there, education will never be there, healthcare will never be there, industrialization will not, agriculture, nothing. So it is the best. It's either the Northwest becomes serious, do it, likewise the Northeast, because there's no part of the North now, virtually, if you want to look at the 19 northern states. In fact, even Northeast and North Central, you'll be looking at it mildly, because out of the 6 states in the Northeast, we are only, it's like 50-50. Down, it's like Taraba has some issues. Up there between, it's also a communal thing. But Yobe and Borno is where the Boko Haram thing is happening. The same thing in the North Central, Nasarawa, Benue, and Plateau. But majorly, the Northwest, that's where the population is. And Kano is like the business hub of the North. So if you tell me, ask me if I'm worried that this is, I will tell you big time, I'm worried. Because I cannot run away from the North because it's having issue, but we can only help by giving our own professional advice, talking to the governors to realize let it go beyond noise or running to US. You don't have a solution in the US as a governor in Nigeria. Your solution is with you. You receive resources, you can generate resources. The only thing is be genuine to your people. Be concerned about their living. Utilize these resources and make life meaningful. After all, this is what you take an oath for. Be it you're a Christian or you're a Muslim. You swore that you are going to utilize these resources. You will make life meaningful to them. You will protect them. human and material, and you are not doing it, and you are running to another country, how many miles, thousands of miles away from you. You want to go and receive which idea to come and do what with it? You are, without even looking at the peculiarity. Tell me, how would the American advice help somebody in Zamfara State? When the bandits today, even though the conspiracies you receive here and there, bandits having today, we even have cases that bandits are using UAVs to patrol, to monitor, to locate. So tell me, you are running to the same person you are suspecting, is part of your problem. So do you expect him to give you a solution? We are not confirming that the US is part of our, security challenges in Nigeria, but supposedly, assuming they are, and our governors are running to them for security solutions, how would that turn out?
Right.
So,
and doubling down on that, just a day ago, former Minister of Interior, Lieutenant General Abdurrahman Bello Dambazo, on Monday decried the rising level of insecurity in the northern part of the country, saying that it has reached a level where bandits and insurgents have taken over some communities, taxing and in fact making laws, basically governing those communities. He is someone who should know what he's talking about, right? He wouldn't be speaking from a position of ignorance. I mean, he's a retired army chief. He was recently in government until a couple of years ago. Your 2 cents on the reality of the situation on the ground and how there is this seeming acceptance of the status quo as a new normal.
I take exception a lot to security, and that's not disrespect. Maybe we just differ in terms of our opinion, or because I fault a lot, people who were in government, people who have also participated at the hierarchy of whatever you want to call it in security. They've played a very vital role, and then when things are degenerating, all they do is to give advice like what you are saying that Dambazo is giving, or is raising his concerns about the issues of worsening security situations in the northern Nigeria that is leading to what we are discussing today. But I think we can do more than that, because like I always look at what is the essence of these forums we are having within the northern Nigeria, the Northern Elders Forum, the Arewa Consultative Forum, which he is part of, be it the former service chiefs forum that are northerners, whatever it is, we have different forums. Is it that they are not engaging each other at a strategic level, because they are supposed to be interfacing with the government? So it's not just to, when it is happening, you just make your own complaint and then go back to rest, or you are making this complaint because you want to really point out to the government that maybe the government is not doing well, and maybe you are calling for a government change or whatever. So there has to be some level of, commitment from the northern elders, particularly those that were of security extraction, engaging the federal government, engaging the subnationals. Look, and there is no state virtually in the north that today you say wouldn't have security personnel, from the DSS to the police to the army. So there has to be, because if you cannot be doing that, then you have no sense of, I don't think you have the moral ground to also be complaining. So I think he can do more than, yes.
Yeah, people who have had a position, who have played a significant position in past governments, have no right to pontificate on the matter.
No, they have, but what I'm saying is they can do more by engaging the federal government towards giving their own idea on how the matter can be handled.
Right.
I'm making it, for example, now he is from Kano, I think, and things that are happening in Kano today, and I'm sure he has some other foreign, experience as Chief of Army Staff, and maybe even post service from Nigeria. I'm sure he must have gotten a lot of experience. He should advise the state government. He can write papers. He can make presentation to the Kano state government. He can try to mediate between the federal government, because he was chief of army staff. He was former minister of interior, to see how the federal government will really come, and partner with the state government to address this matter, as against just making complaints and then going back to our houses and rest. So I think they should do more on the engagement aspect of it.
Right. Okay. We're going to segue into talking about the economy in just a moment. But as a final thought on the security concern, this whole genocide issue has, again, brought about the fault lines, or the realization that Nigeria's fault lines have always been there, and they probably will be there for the foreseeable future. What, in your view, is the biggest risks here when we talk about national unity and cohesion? Because however you explain the issue, you realize that people still feel some type of way. As long as these two keywords are brought into the conversation, Christians and Muslims, right? How do you see this impacting the psyche of Nigerians against the backdrop of the forthcoming general elections? Because a lot has been said linking how the Tinubu administration's Muslim ticket is a part of the problem. I mean, you've heard people like former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Baba Chilalawa, saying, why would Christian not feel slighted when you decide to go down an unfamiliar path by choosing a running mate from the Muslim North?
It also comes down to communication, because I think communication does a lot in life, Mr. Talba. And when you communicate, genuinely and adequately to people, it resolves a lot of problems. The federal government, the Tinubu's first campaign that came with the Muslim ticket, we've not seen anything different. If anything different, I think I saw it from the Murik angle of view, that they supported the Muslim ticket, but today 62% of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's appointment are Christians. So people like Baba Chilawan, instead of him, being somebody who Nigeria has favored enough, and he has benefited a lot in this country, instead of him to be an ambassador of peace, but the direction he is touring every now and then, trying to incite people on the basis of religion, when most of the people, particularly him, to be precise, him, most of the people around him that made him who he is today are even Muslims, and they did not do that because, they don't like their other Muslim brother, but because they saw him perhaps as somebody competent in his own field and, partner to see that he has done well. So if they cannot be communicating to their Christian brothers, for example, in that light, that we should look at things beyond religion, because I have not seen it, and I said it here, I think, before. I have not seen any of the criteria by the United Nations that were outlined in the establishment of the International Religious Freedom Act, IRFA. I have not seen any of the criteria met by Nigeria. I have not seen any, because one of it, which is very important, is policies, deliberate policies by the government, to undermine some certain people because of their faith. I have not seen any of this. So if some individuals in Nigeria will be doing this, what I think the federal government should be doing is to also double down, because I saw it today on one of the highlights. The person that was, advising the coup should either to take place or continue was arrested.
Yeah.
Now,
he was arrested a couple of weeks ago, but
now if he was
charged.
If he was arrested, the tempo with which the DSS acted in arresting this individual, which sent a signal to other Nigerians not to continue on that path. And it really helps the situation, because to an extent we can all, appreciate our security by calming the atmosphere. If we can do this, it means all these individuals we see in the country that here and there they promote some forms of bigotry, either in the Islamic sense or Christian sense of view, just because they have some, personal problem with either the government or some individuals in the government, I think they should also be investigated. Because when we begin to hold people accountable even for their words, like Akpabio said, I think it will help.
Right.
Because if today Babachiri is arrested and investigated,
is that what you're calling for? Do you think he should be arrested?
Yes, he should be arrested, because as an elderly person, he shouldn't be doing this. And not only him, any other person that is going
what has he said that you think crossed the line? For
example, confirming that the genocide, particularly in the north, is taking place. I always call for example, give me one fact, verifiable fact, that this is a massacre that has taken place and is only peculiar to the Christians in any community in the northern Nigeria, and it is purposely because they are Christians. Because in all cases, not most cases, I stand to be corrected, but I don't think there will be that correction. Most of the attacks is not by virtue of your faith. It has always been.
So when churches are attacked, you don't think it's because
not about religion.
It's not attacked because it's a church.
It's not about religion. It's because if you want to look at it that way, you look at the number of mosques that were burnt down, the number of Muslims that were killed either at the prayer of dawn or in the night, or some. Now imagine, we have on record, one of the prominent Islamic scholars in Nigeria was killed broad daylight in the mosque in Kano. People came to that mosque and sprayed him bullets, Sheikh Jafar Mahmoud Adam. We have Albani from Zaria, who was killed broad daylight. Some jeeps attacked him in the middle of Zaria and sprayed him bullet. Now, if you are going with this direction, you now ask, did they kill him because he is also a Christian? They were not killed because they are Christians. They were killed because they were Muslims, but preaching that these activities of Boko Haram is not Islamic. So if the Islamic aspect will be recording cases of their own scholars killed because they are condemning the actions of these bandits or these Boko Haram members, then I think they deserve more than, this unnecessary, because it's unnecessary. These are just.
But you do understand how your opinion about arresting people for expressing extreme views about a controversial issue being unpopular, because that would give birth to a police state.
It's not helping because what you are doing is not helping the situation.
At what point would it be that people are just simply dissatisfied with the way the government has been handling the matter? I mean, you simply agree that there's been a lot of lip service, lack of political will to address this issue, but you do not, however, agree with the categorization.
But you are a stakeholder, because now if you are a stakeholder, you do more than just talking for yourself. If I say anything today, most of my listeners or people who follow me or people who love me or people who cherish me in the society would take that direction. That means if I say anything bad against the Christians, a Muslim man who always wants to listen to me and doesn't even want to verify whatever I say, so long as it's coming from Nurudeen Hamman-yero is correct, he will take action. So people like Babachir should be peace promoters in the society. Yes, there are cases of, there is no dispute to that. Christians have been killed. Muslims have been killed. But Trump cannot be more Christian than Matthew Kuka in Nigeria. He cannot be more Christian than people like Fani Kayode. He cannot be more Christian like people like Falana in Nigeria. These are Nigerians. These are Christians, well respected. He cannot be more Christians than Professor Wole Soyinka. So now, if you want to look at all these things, why is it that when the white man says something, we just take it hook, line, and sinker, and we want to start acting on it? Why?
I mean, it's safe to say that the whole agitation started from Nigeria. But enough of the genocide conversation. Let's switch gears and talk about the economy. Like I did say last week, the Tinubu administration gave a recap of their performance. Earlier in the day, there was also some data that the president's spokesman, one of the president's spokesperson, Bayo Nanuga, was sharing about a reported decline in inflation, again, consistently around 15.6% or thereabout by a group under Access Bank, alluding to how things are getting better when it comes to inflation. Your 2 cents on the reality on ground, especially considering what the World Bank report is stating, that, listen, we've financed this conditional cash transfer and social intervention programs, but the number that the federal government is talking about, 8.5 million households, supposed to target over 24 million people, is not the reality on the ground. And we know that these stipends are not even enough to actually make a difference. What do you make of the scale of the problem versus the scale of the solution, and that issue that you brought about communicating what is actually happening to the people?
You know, the execution aspect of every policy we have taken in this country has always been the problem. Because if you remember, we faulted a lot of times when there are fantastic policies like this from the federal government, even without foreign intervention, like during the time of President Muhammadu Buhari, late president, where the former Minister of Humanitarian says she has disbursed, 20,000 naira to 20 million Nigerians in one day. We faulted that because it was unrealistic. We've not seen the data. And the same thing is happening. So I think what government should do more, I have always said this, and I think I will personally continue to be talking about it. We need to really come up with a national data, because today life has become easy with the world is global, and people have accepted technology at all levels. Even the least educated person in the society, you find out, has a phone to communicate. And if the federal government wants to do anything, be it receiving, interventions, foreign interventions, or it is locally adapted, there are better ways to do it by genuinely, coming up with ideas that these things will get to the targeted people, so that the root cause of the problem will be addressed. As against, for example, handing over, we have seen what politicians have done, in the past with policies. And today, so many people are suffering. For example, even during the same thing with the Buhari era, where monies too were shared, supposedly to Nigerians to target some household or some individuals because of the poor economy and the effect of COVID-19. At the end, monies were given to people, not exactly the money gets to the targeted hands. And at the end, some people use the money without any form of government support or direction. They ate the money, and some of them are paying the money today without any process. So I think the federal government will really have to, bring up policies. Let it be that whenever they want to execute a policy, they should do so with the highest sense of, honesty, so that the targeted people will get what is required for them. Because as it stands today, whether it is the United Nations, I don't know, or World Bank that are saying whatever they have given has not gotten to the right hands, and we are also saying, after all, what they are giving is not even sufficient to address the problem. But we know, if it is given, to who and where? Where is the data?
We had a guest yesterday, Dr. Benga Hashim, who said, listen, there's also the institutionalization of some of these incentives. These disbursements are made in a partisan manner to induce communities in favor of the government in power when it comes to those disbursements. And like, as you alluded, this is not the first time we're talking about the politicization of these types of intervention programs. Do you fear that this administration is falling in the same trap that previous administrations have fallen into when it comes to social interventions?
Somehow, yes. Because it might be that the direction from the federal government is do it, openly and freely to every Nigerian. But as soon as it leaves that stage, on the next stage, be it at the intermediate stage, before the execution stage, that interest of, I'm a governor, I'm a senator, I have to cater for my own people, and my own people are my own party people, not my people generally. Right. So that will always be there. So you are right.
Right. Okay. Just before we go, I know you're interested in having this conversation because you still have, like I said, friends in the armed forces and things like that. The controversy yesterday involving the FCT minister and a lieutenant guarding a property reportedly belonging to former naval chief of staff. your 2 cents on what had happened and what it means, because it does look like there is a positioning between people who are within the Nigerian armed forces. At least the body language is showing that this is the Nigerian armed forces versus political figures who have becomes, quote unquote, I think drunk is a very severe word, but maybe are overreaching politically in terms of the discharge of their powers. What do you make of what happened and what it means for the relationship between political figures and the armed forces?
First of all, it's uncalled for. Ordinarily, it should have been avoided, because the minister, one of the respected office in the land, is that of a minister, because you are entrusted by the president in helping him, to discharge some of his responsibilities at departmental level. And if a character displayed by the Minister of FCT yesterday will be of every other minister, then I think the office generally of a minister even should be scrapped in Nigeria. However, that being said, if you want to look at that case, you look at, because it has a good and bad side. What the officer did in response to the attacks from the minister, the officer did very well. He acted within his sense of professionalism. And then if you even take away the ministerial title from Wike and take out also the title of the officer team from the officer, it means the officer ordinarily, even as a non-military person, if he had that sense of, approach, would have even won if it were a battle, because it means he has some level of discipline, not even because he's a military person, because we have military people who are also trigger happy, who would have also lost control and perhaps even exchange, be it insult or even blows with the minister. However, the minister should really would have avoided it, because he has channel of communication he would have followed, to make sure he addressed this problem without even talking to the officer, because he sits at the Federal Executive Council meeting with ministers of defense. It means he has access to the service chiefs. It means as a minister of FCT, he has access to the Navy base, the Presidential Guard Commander. He has access to a lot of military officers. Right. So ordinarily, what he has done is laughable, it's uncalled for, and what the officer did was fantastic, even though there is a different school of thought on the matter that are military people now. But if you look at it, he has introduced himself as the chief security officer to the former chief of naval staff. And right. His duty is to safeguard the life and property of the chief as far as that appointment is concerned.
All right. We're going to leave it there for now. We understand the defense headquarters is investigating the matter, and we wait to see whatever outcome there is to establish from that whole fracas that became the drama of the day, I might add. Well, on that particular note, Engineer Nurudeen Hamman-yero, thank you so much for joining the conversation. I appreciate you very much for your insight on this. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you so much. Right. And with that, we wrap things up for tonight's edition of the program. Daily Politics will be back tomorrow live at 8 p.m. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you for your time. We'll see you soon.